What's up, guys? So, in my last video, somebody had left a comment saying that Australia produces so much more food than what it consumes, what Australians consume, right? And this isn't addressed at that person. I don't know what they meant by that exactly. I'm not saying that they're not preparing for what's coming. I'm not saying they even disagree with what I said, okay? But my response to them was, did you, because this was coming from a news report, I asked him if he double checked if this is true or if he just obeyed the news, right? Like, is that even true? Now, maybe it was at some point, but is that still true today? Do you know? Have you investigated what's happening in the Australian beef industry, seafood industry, wine industry, any of these industries? Now, I think Australia will probably fare better than most places because of that. But then when I look at how you guys rolled over, because, at the time they shut down your economy or heavily impaired it at the very least, there were less than 10 people dead of something they cannot even scientifically prove happened. When I look at how easily and for no apparent reason you guys rolled over, I wonder what else the social engineers and central planners have in store for you and how you're just going to accept that too. Okay, so all that I'm saying is that I don't know what's going to happen, but I think your complacency might one day turn you into a starving criminal going after the people that have been preparing and warning you. Okay, so if it ever comes to that point where you're starving or life is kind of rough, at the very least, you know, continue being a good person and stop trying to, steal from the people who were telling you to get ready. Okay? Okay? So, look, I'm not going to take what these people here who claim to have connections to the deep state, I'm not going to claim that they have any more knowledge of what's in store for everybody. Okay? Deagle.com. Look, I showed you a document. Yeah? I talked about a document that if you don't believe this pandemic was planned, that's fine. But to say that the response to it wasn't, well, that's just rejecting reality because the proof is out there. There's lots of proof of how the response to any potential pandemic, even a few weeks, Event 201, right, before it happened, was planned. Okay? So when I say that they're going to bring the lockdowns back in waves, they're going to release you, then they're going to lock you up, release you, lock you up. When I talk about 2 steps forward, 1 step back when it comes to this agenda, that's not me guessing. That's just me telling you what's in store for you, what they have planned for you. And seeing how easily you rolled over, well, I don't think Australia is going to resist what's coming. And remember that video I did about some think tank and their document? This was about a month ago, maybe, a few weeks ago. The article that they wrote, or the whole plan for reopening America, the roadmap to reopening America, right? Remember that? That was the plan that all the news stations are now talking about, right? They're just reading from that script. Because social engineering is real, because central planning is real. Like, this is what's in store. This is what's coming. All you got to do is open up your eyes, stop being a bigot, open your mind up a little bit, and investigate. Okay, so these people here with connections to the deep state, as they say, made a prediction for what's going to happen, well, all over the world, but this is specifically Australia, right, by 2025. So whereas you were at 23 million population in 2017, they are saying that you're going to be at 15 million. So something by 2025. So they believe something is going to happen to 8 million Australians. Maybe they'll migrate to China. Maybe they'll die of a virus. Maybe they'll starve to death. Maybe a combination of all those things, right? And while that's happening, they predict that your GDP will almost half and your purchasing power will more than half, will drop dramatically by something like 60%. Okay? So, according to these people who are in contact allegedly with central planners who have mapped out what's going to be happening in your country all over the world, they are saying that your standard of living is going to plummet and your population with it as well. That's what they're saying. Whether that actually happens or not, well, I mean, don't think you don't have a say in it. Okay? That's the plan. And you could dismiss this all you want. That's fine. I don't care. I'm just talking to the people who are willing to listen. You know, this doesn't have to happen. Just because that's the plan, well, that doesn't mean you got to roll over and let it happen, right? But insofar as the Australian economy, like, just because you guys produce more food than you consume, let's see. Coronavirus. Well, look, first and foremost, now you have new food safety standards, things that you have to do to the food nowadays. I don't even have to read this to know what this is. Okay? You have new standards for food handling that will make everything more difficult. Okay? Cumbersome. And potentially even make your food more poisonous. But anyway, if Australia, for example, produces so much more than what they consume, then your food prices are based largely on export, right? Now, if they're unable to export this food, and that is happening right now, a lot like the wine industry. Look, Australia's food supply relies on migrant workers, many of whom are facing coronavirus limbo. Don't panic, Australia. The coronavirus doesn't mean that we'll run out of food, right? I'm not saying you will, but look, if your exports are shut down, what that means is that a lot of the food producers will have to go out of business. If they can't sell their food, they're going to go out of business, right? And you won't be able to eat all of that, so it's going to go to waste, right? So what does that mean globally? Well, that means that someone who's been relying on that food all of a sudden won't have that, right? They won't have the beef that you guys export to them, right? So that means that Taiwan or whatever, a big Thailand, big rice exporter, because they can't get your beef, they're not going to be sending you their rice because they're going to want to feed their people. And that's what's happening already, right? So just because Australia produces a ton of food, well, that doesn't mean that it produces everything that it needs, right? For starters. So you might start seeing shortages of the things that you don't produce in Australia, while people in China are seeing a shortage of beef because they're not getting the Australian beef, okay? And when those producers go out of business, that that supply is not coming back anytime soon, okay? And that's happening all over the world. So you have a certain number of people in the world, yeah, relying on the food supply, and the food supply is dwindling. This is basic mathematics. Real basic mathematics. And once these people go out of business, and they're not producing all this food, there's less food being produced overall, and you're getting that government check, like what's planned, food prices will skyrocket. You might be able to get trash, sure, but forget being able to afford the carnivore diet. A lot of people won't be able to do that. whole food plant-based, a lot of people won't be able to do that. And another thing, you know, even though Australia may produce way more food than it needs inputs from other economies in order to do that. Yeah? Like, where do you get your fertilizer and pesticides from? Where do you get all that from? Where are you getting? And don't talk to me about, oh, well, that's great. We're going to grow everything pesticide and fertilizer free. How? How are you just overnight going to switch to that sort of system when the system is designed to work with all these various inputs? How are you going to just switch like that overnight? You can't. Where are all your Australian animals getting their supplements from? And not just feed, even though I understand that most cattle in Australia is grass fed, fine, but they're still getting some input from China, probably, right? Grain, feed, definitely pigs and chickens, right? So that's not going to be coming in as much. And where do they get their mineral and vitamin supplements from? Probably China too, or somewhere, right? So that's not going to be as available. What about farming equipment? Like, I could just go on and on and on. Even though Australia may produce more food than what it needs, it's still not self-sufficient. Okay? And there are already huge um, losses in the Australian food production all over the world. Okay? And all these new laws and measures that they're going to implement are just going to make it harder and harder to produce and distribute food. Okay? Now, there's another thing that, for some reason, and it boggles the mind, people who are in this carnivore, quote unquote, anti-vegan community, there's another thing coming that people don't seem to understand, even though they don't seem aware of it, even though it's been happening from the very beginning of this crisis I mean, it's been happening for decades now, this sort of thing. So, check it out.
Tonight, the CDC and Department of Agriculture confirming infection in two.
The CDC, yeah, and the Department of Agriculture. Do I need to go on? Do I even need to go on and explain to you what's happening? Let me see if you could connect the dots. I'm going to stop the video right here. Let's see if you could connect the dots. Thank you.